All right, just finished this episode with Tristin from Awaken Militia. We get into quite a few things here, mostly about his history, what his future looks like, Awaken, what they're doing, all those beautiful things. Did something a little bit different today in this episode. We did a Q&A, did a poll, requested some questions on Twitter to see kind of what community is interested in asking Tristin or the podcast in general. So if you're ever interested in that and you want to ask questions that'll be featured on the episode, tweet at us or at me or at the podcast. That's after HRS podcast, is the at after HRS podcast. Or tweet at me, hit me up, whatever, contact me, however. Yeah, but as always, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast if you're not already. Make sure you told a friend about it. And yeah, let me know what you think of it so far. It's been a lot of fun for me, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do this. Sorry, fiance just texted me, so if you heard that. But other than that, yeah, here's the episode. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to episode number 25 of the After Hours podcast. Here with me today, I have the founder and CEO of Awaken Militia. I have Tristin, who also goes by TaZe, at TaZe the God on Twitter. Pretty excited for this episode. I know we got to talk a little bit on your podcast a few months back, and so that was fun. So I'm excited to bring you back on, or bring you over to mine, and kind of, I guess, return the favor type thing. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Cool. So first question I always ask is what was your first encounter with the esports space? Not necessarily your first job or anything like that, but the first time you were like, oh, that's esports.
I would say very close to after I started my YouTube channel, I finally found Optic Gaming, and they were in the middle of the road to 100-0. That was back in Black Ops 2 days, so that was kind of my first exposure to esports. Was all that, the old days when it was FaZe, Envy, Optic, and there might have been, I think, Impact as well. So that was kind of my first exposure to esports.
Cool. What year was that? Or how many years ago was that, maybe?
For
context, that was probably 5 or 6, right? 7, maybe?
7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, that's a while ago. Yeah, I feel like it's weird. I feel like for me, prior to moving to Texas, everything was all one lump of esports history, and then everything after that, I'm very good at remembering things. But everything before that, it's just pre-Texas Zack, where I didn't focus as much as I do now.
Yeah.
On the history and stuff like that. Cool. So for those who are listening that don't know or are unfamiliar with what Awaken Militia does, let's get into a little bit about what Awaken is, what your day-to-day looks like. We could probably guide this a little bit better. Let's start off with broadly, what's Awaken Militia? What do you guys do? And what do you guys stand for?
So Awaken is a esports and content organization. Our roots, started in 2013 in the Call of Duty pubs community, and then slowly over the years we got into competitive Call of Duty and a multitude of games since then. Overwatch, League of Legends, some of the fighting games. You name the game, we've probably been in it more than once. I would say what we stand for is, personally, we're a very innovative and very unique family. I tend to always use the word organization, but I would say we're more of a family when it comes down to it. There's times where when I've gone through struggles mentally and things, as well as other members, we go into the Awaken chat, and it's just it's kind of like a second family, if anything.
Yeah, I hear that. I think it's important to have that camaraderie, however you pronounce it, the word camaraderie, amongst a brand, organization, company, family, whatever word you use. I think that's super important because, not only is it, you all have a similar goal and
Yeah.
you know, ideas and all that. But on top of that, you have a support system. So if you're ever, you know, whether it's you're struggling finding motivation to get something done, or you're mentally having like a mental downtime or whatever,
Yeah.
you always have that support system with you to help, you know, lift you up. So I
Yeah.
think that's very important to, you know, treat an organization as a family. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So with your title as the CEO of Awaken, what do you do personally on a day-to-day basis? What does your workload look like as a gentleman who is running an organization every day?
So I think for me, it's a little bit unique compared to that of other organization owners. You know, not just because of the fact of me being an org owner, but also, you know, I am a content creator, and so you know, part of my thing is waking up in the morning, taking care of saying like good morning to everyone in the chat, getting things done on social media. You know, if it's in terms of looking for rosters, typically I'm the one who's leading negotiations on contracts, making sure that players understand what's in the contracts, and overall signing them. Working with sponsors, sometimes tweeting out clips from some of our members, getting my own personal content done, and just things like that, and obviously making sure that everything's running as smooth and efficiently as a organization can in 2019.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like how you close that off with as smooth as you can in 2019. Because there's a lot going
Yeah.
on. You know, there's a lot of money
Yeah.
coming into the space. There's a lot of people either coming in and going out of the space, both positively and negatively. So there's a lot of navigation, you know, through the industry that, you know, as the leader of your brand, you have to make sure you're navigating efficiently and quickly and safely, and you know, not having any issues or anything like that. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like if your
I mean,
work, your work. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
just just to touch on something, you talked about people coming in and out of esports all the time in organizations. I think we're a lot different because we've never once had an investor, another co-owner. It's solely been me always handling, the financial burden of it, which is at times it's difficult, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something I'm kind of proud that, there's very few self-sustaining organizations that haven't really had to go out and do anything. Um, especially for how long we've been around. It's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. There's definitely not a lot of. I mean, there are definitely a few, but there's definitely not as
Yeah.
many as there used to be. That it's, you know, not backed by a certain money, or
Yeah.
entirely self-owned, or
Yeah.
you know, your situation that you guys have. I think that's, you know,
Yeah.
that's what's the word I'm looking for? Commending. Commending is probably not the
Yes.
right word, but I think I know what I'm talking about.
Impressive.
Impressive is the right word. Yeah, definitely. But I commend you for, you know, sticking to your guns and just doing it on your own. You know, it
Yeah.
takes a lot of effort and energy to continue to do it day in and day out on your
Mhm.
own. So, you know, I'm right there with you. I definitely feel
Yeah.
you on that. Cool. So you mentioned you do YouTube on your own, content creation.
Yeah.
You do all that. What got you into that? What you know, what sparked your interest in getting on YouTube?
I think really for me it was just I had always watched YouTube videos as a kid. For those who remember like the old days of YouTube, I was kind of there in the birth and the growth of Lonely Girl 15 as a fan of that community. Rest in peace to that show. Um, and I just kind of fell in love with other creators in the gaming space at the time. Team Martin, These Gamer Tag, Only Use Me Blade, FPS Russia for a little bit of time. Um, so I'd always been kind of around the YouTube scene, and I knew I'm not academically gifted. I'm not athletically gifted. But at the end of the day, I like to think I'm like very creatively inspired. If something hits me or if I see something, I'm like, okay, I could do something like that, but like 10 times better, and I'll try to go out and do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What were the first type of videos you were putting out? Were they just like cut comms, or were you doing just you know, like a let's
So
play?
back then, I didn't have nearly like the setup I have now.
Hmm.
I had like a little iPod 5 at the time, and I would set it on a little stand, and I would just like stand there in my living room playing, in front of the TV and everything. If I got like a little kill with like a canine or something like that, like I thought that was one of the like greatest things in the world, because getting like a swarm or a canine or something back then in BO2 like was not impossible, but like the times were very rare.
Yeah.
So that was kind of for me. I did a little bit of trolling inside the pub stomping community back then. There were a group of people who, and like even to this day, I'm not proud of it. Like looking back, I would do private match games and like try to fit in with other players who were getting higher score games and everything. Just to kind of try to find a way into the community. And again, I'm not necessarily happy about it at the time, but when you're 12, 13 years old, like you really don't understand those types of things compared to now. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I mean, everybody goes through I guess, a learning stage or a
yeah,
maturity stage where they start to understand, like, either, hey, what I'm doing is wrong, or hey, what I used to
yeah,
do is right, or whatever. So, I mean,
yeah,
everybody goes through that. So,
yeah.
no fault on you there, as long as you weren't a bully.
No, I was never like, even to this day, like I won't start a fight. If someone provokes me, or whatever, then yeah, there'll be the occasional clap back, but not really, like anything, like Modern Warfare 2 lobbyish type behavior.
Modern Warfare 2 lobbies. Oh man, my
Yeah,
ears sleep better at night not thinking about those lobbies.
yeah.
This kid gets on there, sticks the mic down his throat, and screams as loud as he can in your ear. That's just, I do
Oh
not
yeah.
miss that. Oh boy, do I not miss that. um,
Yeah.
I do miss the game though. Modern Warfare 2 was
Oh,
it's probably
absolutely.
top three favorite video game I think I ever played, up there with Halo 2.
I have it when they made it backwards compatible.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think I've only played two games, because the first one I got into, like no joke, was actually a hacked Superman lobby, to which I was like, that's great. Like I was planning on making a video, and I'm like, yeah, the first lobby I get into is a hacked lobby. And then this second one, I just like, I I didn't have the same appreciation for it like as I did playing it originally.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you for sure. It will. It's gone, but not forgotten in my concern.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'll always hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. Yeah. So I mean, I guess we got a little bit into your background, what you do on a daily.
Yeah.
Um, I did so something that I don't do very often. Something that I'm kind of toying with to see if it catches interest or whatever is tweet prior about the guests that I'm going to have on, and we ask questions, or I try to create a list of questions from people who are interested in that guest or the podcast in general.
Yeah.
Um, so we got a couple questions. We could kind of rapid fire them a little bit, and just see, who, or just get your thoughts on whatever the questions are.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
so question one is, this is from Evan, Boston Stats. He's one of the
Yeah.
guys that we work with. I mean, that Sector 6 works with.
Yeah.
He asked, what got you into esports?
I mean, pretty simply, two words: Optic Gaming. Like watching Optic and seeing even, what small events back then looked like, and whatever, really got me into it. I think my first organization wasn't even on a staff level. It was content. I was doing stuff with Vanquish. That's
Mm-hmm.
when Gray and Macazur were there, and then um, I think I went through like a slew of different orgs over the time frame. So that might have been 20. That was around Advanced Warfare time frame. So that would have been 2014, 2015 ish. I think I went from Vanquish to Stunner and then Circa for like a brief time. Um, I vaguely remember like being part of Zerka because I was on like winter break or whatever, and I was in Colorado at the time, and I remember being on Twitter talking
Mark.
with Trotta and
Oh, try.
but I feel bad. I don't remember who ran Circuit.
Mark.
Mark. Yeah, that's right. Um, so yeah, that was kind of my entry into esports and everything.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question we have from Blitz. I unfortunately don't know his first and last name. I really
Yeah.
Sidebar. I really
Yeah.
I build a better relationship with people when I know their first
Yeah.
and last name. Definitely their first, not necessarily their last name, because some people are private about that, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
But something about like calling somebody by their gamer tag, it puts me off, and I like personally just would rather call you by your first name. It's more personal to me, and I'm all about like being personal with people and building a relationship past what a gamer tag is. So if I ever call you by your first name and you don't like it, I'm sorry. It's just it's a me thing. But Blitz, he owns Spades, who we work with a little bit on the Sector 6 side, or worked with.
Yeah.
And he also is a brand and partnership manager for Juggernaut, the energy company, energy drink company. He asked, how do you base your time off of multiple projects? I'm sorry. So I think that's a pretty good question. So I'd love to hear your insight on that.
So, I mean, for those that don't know me, besides running Awaken, I do run, again, a multitude of different things. I run Spark Esports and Entertainment, which is very, very much like a startup incubator and holding company at this point, where we have a full stage production, studio and photography thing that I practically do. We used to have a tournament league, which we're kind of figuring something to do with that. Obviously, I have the Ambition podcast, and most recently, I became a street team member for a record label out in LA that I love 90% of the bands that are part of that, which I was very happy about. So to kind of answer the question, I think you have to really see what works for you, like how much time you really want to dedicate to each project, and I try to treat everything I do the same as if I would, an organization or a job or, sports. And that's trying to put always 110% I can into it within that, short amount of time that I have. So, that's kind of mapping out, like days ahead of time, like, okay, I'm going to do this, maybe on, for content creators, stockpiling like 4 or 5 days of content, and just getting that scheduled ahead of time, things like that. A lot of the times I just do things on the fly because I feel like that's where I really shine best, is like when, my back is like against the wall and people are waiting to see what I do next. And so that's like, especially with Awaken, when you see us like hype up something, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I kind of want to, I guess, put my insight on this as well. Like the multiple projects thing, it's definitely a time management thing. But it's at the same time, it's understanding what your personal capability is. So for me, we moved, what was it, 2017? Moved to Frisco, and my main focus was like, doing what we were doing at Infinite, obviously, and then Sector 6. Yeah. And then everything happened. Time went on. And early 2019, I was like, I think now is the time that I have solidified myself in understanding what our processes are at Sector 6. We have a good thing going here right now. We were doing, whatever we were doing. Everything was going smooth. But I was like, all right, I have a grasp on this. Now is the time where I'm going to focus on my other things. So I started a podcast. I'm trying to focus a little bit more on content personally. I'm working on a few side projects. It's just a matter, I think the biggest thing is a matter of understanding what your main focus is. So for me right now it's Sector 6. That's my breadwinner. That's how I'm making my money. That's how I'm paying my bills. And then understanding how much time you have to spend on other things that you want to do, whether that's, gaming, hanging out with your friends, seeing your significant other, building a business, whatever it is. You have to allocate that amount of time and divvy it up the way you want to do it. That way it's healthy for you and conducive to what you're doing, within your day-to-day life. So I think it's super important to understand what you could spare time-wise and how you want to spread that out. But at the end of the day, it's one of those, for me, splitting up projects and all that and getting things done is just more of a just go do it. You know, at the end of the day, especially if you're not answering directly to somebody, if you don't finish something, it's going to be there for you tomorrow. You know,
Yeah.
in a situation like, I guess for Sector 6, if we miss a deadline on a jersey because somebody didn't put an order in, like that's a completely different scenario.
Yeah.
But if you're building a brand and the piece of content you want to go up goes up at the end of the week and you don't finish it today, it's going to be there for you tomorrow to finish. It's not the end of the world if you don't get it done that day. So just understanding your, I guess, timelines and things like that, and building a good understanding of what you're doing is the first step, and then spreading it out from there. Super important.
I think one of the different things for me as well is that because like my channel, you know, my shows, my my podcasts are all kind of technically under Spark.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a one thing where I can be like, hey, okay, so I'm wanting to make sure that everything works perfectly so that this company has everything across the board done, because across 4 or 5 different brands, it's not always easy, but being able to kind of like just consolidate everything to one is like, okay, now I have a checklist essentially of how to do things.
Yeah, totally understand that. Before we get into the next question, Spark is a media, and what exactly does that company do?
So, the way I would classify Spark is that we're kind of a startup and strategic holdings company. Okay. So, the plan was very similar to that of like Infinite. I was very impressed with like what Infinite did within the first couple months. Obviously, teams here, companies here, and I really didn't see anything like that in the Midwest. Esports in like Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa is very misrepresented. First off, is misrepresented and frankly ignored. To literally like only 2 colleges here in Nebraska do esports, and like even then you don't hear as much about them as like Maryville or Full Sail or Robert Morris. So the goal is kind of to build a ecosystem and a kind of I would say a like kind of like a growth factor for digital entertainment and esports here in especially Nebraska.
Okay.
So that's with working with teams, that could be creating content, or just even simply handling things. We do work with teams all over the the world and stuff. But also we do have a couple different brands. Like I've mentioned, a full studio for photography. I have a separate holdings company that I like to do things under, and a ton of different things. So I think it's kind of very interesting, the things that I'm kind of working on, all the time.
Sure. No, yeah, I think that's the right way to do it. Wrap it all up under one thing and then spread it out underneath the way you have it. I like that.
Yeah.
So get back to get back into the next questions. We will circle back on the gamer subs question in the chat, which we all know is Chad. He says, I have a question. Why is gamer subs your favorite energy drink? Hashtag, this is not an ad. However, not an ad. I don't know if is Awaken partnered with gamer subs?
We have been in the past.
Okay.
Yes. This was towards the beginning of last year. I believe they upped their partnership requirements, and we unfortunately weren't able to move on with them. And I understood. Things like that happen all the time.
Sure.
I love gamer subs. It was one of the best companies I got to work with. Chad, you follow me on Twitter, so if you ever want to talk, you know where to find me. Yeah. But I'd have to go with Dragon Fruit Punch, man. Like I still keep a couple packs of that actually in my wallet wherever I go. Like I still have some packs of the acai berry, the Dragon Fruit Punch, and a couple of other flavors.
Yeah.
I think it's like even if you're not sponsored with that company, like if you still have it, like kind of at least it's paying respect. Like I did work with this company, and I still love the flavor, so I'm gonna carry it with me wherever I go. It's like sentimental in a way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess to answer the question on my side of things, I've never tried gamer subs, unfortunately, but you also don't follow me on Twitter, Chad. But at the same time, I think we're on the same Discord server somewhere. So I mean, I haven't tried anything. I could. You do? Oh, maybe you do. Oh, I didn't even know you're still here. I don't follow. I'm a bot. Oh, I am a bot. Oh, sorry. Like my recent tweet, and I'll find you from that.
Okay.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know you. I didn't know you had a personal Twitter. That could just be me
Yeah,
being a bot.
he has a personal Twitter.
What
I
is
think
it?
it's Chad plays GG.
No, it's not. No way. We're gonna figure this out, right? No, we're not. I'm recording a podcast. We'll do this after. Sorry, Chad. Into the next question we go. So Awaken Chill Giver. I'm sure you don't need an intro because he's part of Awaken. He said he or she. Is it a he or a she?
He.
Okay. He asks, where do you see the future of Awaken Militia? Also, what are your thoughts on the franchise leagues? I know this could go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
So take it away.
Okay, so most people know I have a second channel where I've actually I meant to do a 3-part series about why I thought the CDL was going to fail. I got one episode in, and then I had the others recorded and just got so busy I couldn't upload the others. There's some leagues I do believe that work. That I know that they've talked about a CS:GO franchise league, and I kind of want to see how that would work. The LCS definitely is kind of, I would say, the crown jewel. Anyone who knows me personally knows I have very, very negative thoughts about Blizzard and the Overwatch League, particularly because of events that happened 2 years ago that really were shady against us. Our diehard, fans from back then would agree with me. But on the side of the Call of Duty League, and I know a lot of people think I want it to fail. I don't want it to fail. If anything, I want Activision to take the criticism that a lot of people are giving them about, this is a bad idea. What's this $25 million going into? Because there really wasn't hey, this is what this money's going to.
Yeah.
It's not going to, if they would have said it's going to infrastructure and production and marketing and special parties or something, where that's not coming out of the organization's money, then I'm okay, we have us as casual fans, as people who are going to go to these events and maybe compete, have an idea of where the money is going to go. But I think that also branding around a certain city is very limiting. Sure, you could have a worldwide fan base, but you're always going to be known as that team from certain city. Like myself, I'm from Los Angeles. There's the Dodgers, the Lakers, everyone. There's that football team up north that's moving to Vegas, but I'm not mentioning them by name. There's a ton of different things I think with franchise leagues that are good and bad. I think it's also just that I really don't know if Call of Duty is ready for franchise leagues. Because especially it wasn't like how CS:GO has had the talk for years about it. It was out of the blue, oh, we're gonna do a franchise league, and it'd be $25 million, blah blah blah, this and that, whatever. I think some of the teams have definitely done good on the part of building a narrative and rivalries, before actually stepping into an arena. That being Huntsman and Empire have definitely done good jobs of that. But I personally, again, I don't want to see the COD League fail, because I think that would be really bad for anybody who's a Call of Duty fan, and even those organizations involved. Because obviously they now have, $200 million at stake, or something crazy like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I understand. I definitely understand where you're coming from. I guess the biggest thing to consider is, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, I guess, with
Yeah.
the league in general. Obviously, I mean, it probably, maybe Activision Blizzard assumed, it went without saying that a good amount of that money is going towards the structure of the league and building the league out, and that understanding. Like, another thing to consider is, they are now, like, Activision, or the Call of Duty League is now employing however many people that they're employing, so those people need to be paid. The production needs to be, the cost for the productions need to be put up and all that stuff. So there's a lot of, like, obviously that doesn't cost you $250 million to do.
Exactly.
But there are a lot of unseen costs that at first light, MLG or CWL was doing.
I
Was
don't
handling.
even think it's the MLG guys anymore, because
No, it's not. Yeah.
because like they don't even use the arena in Ohio anymore.
Right. No, what I was getting into was that, like, in years past, CWL, MLG handles all that stuff. So in the money that comes from the previous event, whether it's the ticket sales or the sponsorship dollars or whatever it ends up being, that money is what's covering those costs. Right now, there is no money covering that cost. You're starting a brand new league, so the buy-in for the league. Now, believe me,
essentially will cover, like, I mean, like $25 million could probably cover it. Like, I don't remember how much MOG was bought for, but like that probably could just $25 million alone.
Yeah,
could handle an entire year. So
right. But now, totally, like, for anybody now listening, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. I absolutely have no idea how that money is being split up.
exactly.
I'm just a spectator in this. I just want to
Like,
preface with that. I have no insider info.
Clueless. Like, people think because I'm an orga owner, I have some like inside knowledge. I'm like, no, I really don't.
Yeah.
There's only been one time where I've had like inside knowledge on something where I probably shouldn't have, and people gave me a ton of crap for saying it.
Yeah.
To which then, like, if the people that was about ever like confronted me about it, I would probably apologize to them, even though I know that the information is correct. The follow up with what Chill was saying about, like, where do I see the future? I see us really getting back to where we were 2016, 2017, where, we were in 6-7 games at a time, where we were really smash mouthing people with content that I was proud of. 2018 and especially 2019, we've kind of taken a step back to kind of find like what the right content is, and that's especially something on my part where, like, as soon as the beta hit this year, we had like 3 montages that we all had like ideas on. With the signing of our brand new Call of Duty team, there's some content things I've talked about with them that I really want to do. To not only better the organization, but as well like them and their brands, which I think is a lot different from what some orgs do out there. I really want to get into like more personal type content. So you're like 20 questions, getting to know people, so that fans can also build a connection when going to events, or even if it's just your normal tips and tricks, live com or cut com or whatever it may be. Something like that. On the products side of things, there's a lot of things people would be surprised about. There's times where I've been surprised. Like, one of the best moments I think was last year. I was sitting in an art class and someone sent me a link to, I think it was like a Pakistani merch site, and it was our logo on some dog tags, and I obviously told that merch site to take that down, but then I was like, wait, that's also a really good idea though.
Yeah.
To which now I know, like, shirt, and I'm like, yeah, like this will happen. I'm not gonna say when.
Yeah.
But it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Cool.
There's other merch things that we're looking at, apparel wise. Obviously most people know we have the RDL collection, which is going to be coming out sometime very, very soon. One of the shirts on that I personally designed myself with, design elements from things we've had in the past and everything. So it's kind of again a really nice throwback in a way. I would say this is kind of like our championship white collection.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, are those, just so I could mentally get a grasp of this, are those the ones that you showed me
Yeah.
a month or
Yeah.
so? Yeah, those will look pretty good. I'm excited to see those.
Exactly. There are some people who are like, that's not a shirt, that's a jersey, and I'm like, my intention is for it to be a shirt.
Well, yeah, I
Like,
mean, yeah,
like,
it's people. I mean, what people say is kind of subjective. Like if
yeah,
just because it's printed on a sublimated garment doesn't necessarily make it a jersey. So
exactly. I'm
yeah,
like, you can't look at the like, you have to look at all the aspects. You have to understand like the creativeness. Like, okay, so this is a shirt on a jersey. Like that's I think it would change the apparel game if people were to start doing that. Like
yeah,
literally creating, like essentially, V-neck or double V-neck shirts on jerseys. What I think would be relatively, crazy. Like I'll tell people I don't care about how the lettering would look. I don't care about how this looks. I'm like, how does everything look in the grand scheme? I'm like, I will pay
mm-hmm.
for a test print. I'm like, I will work with you guys to make sure this is the way I want it to be done. Like, I think me, from our time at Sector 6. I'm very stubborn to a point about like, I don't care how something looks. Like, I just know that when it comes out, it's gonna look nice, and I trust, the apparel companies and suppliers and producers to handle that. So
Yeah, no, I hear that for sure. That makes sense. You know, I we've talked back and forth a few
yeah.
times about how Awaken merch would look with us. You know, that's another conversation for another day. Um,
Yeah.
so Chill also had another question.
Yeah.
And this one's going to be an all you question because
Yeah.
I know nothing about Paladins, to preface.
Yeah.
Could you take a look at the new season of Paladins and the changes they are making to give and give me your opinions on if this is a good idea or not? Because many people say that this is a very bad thing for esports in this game, but on the flip side, these changes could be huge! Exclamation mark.
So I don't know what the changes of the new season of Paladins are. I have subbed in for the guys occasionally, and I'm getting better and better. As time goes on, getting one or two, 3 kills maybe here at a time, or just kind of helping out, in certain exchanges and everything. But I'll definitely kind of take a look, and probably once I'm kind of like really informed on it, I'll probably tweet out something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And give my full in-depth thoughts. Maybe I'll make a video because it might be better to sit down and give my thoughts rather than tweeting 160 characters at a time.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, so this goes back into. I mean, obviously, I know nothing about Paladin, so I can't really
Yeah.
continue this conversation very much. But I will say, as far as getting your thoughts out in video form, definitely way better than like
Yeah.
160 or whatever the limit is on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I just don't like talking to videos. It's really weird for me. Like I could I could record a podcast. I could stream on Twitch.
Yeah.
But when the second where like we'll finish this podcast up and I'll do the intro and I'm doing the intro and I know mentally that I'm talking to myself and I can't do it.
Yeah.
I try to record a TikTok and I look at the camera and I see my ugly face in the back and it's just like, this is weird. I can't talk to myself and I just psych myself out. But
sorry to cut
fun.
you off.
No, go ahead.
I think a lot of the times what I do when like I'm gonna do some of these like sit down videos is I will actually spend like hours and days like just like if you were having a conversation with yourself or someone else, like I would literally just repeat it and be like, how does this sound in my head? Like and then I'll be like, well, I'll go through that like if I'm reading a script and then I'm like, yeah, that sounds better.
Mm-hmm.
So there's times where I'll record like a sit down video 5 different times to get just one correct. So when it comes down to it, I think that's a little bit easier is when you have that kind of like mental ability to be like, this sounds better, and be able to do it, in that certain way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I guess for me, it's just getting over that mental hump and being more comfortable of it. I'm getting there, I think. My very supportive fiance tells me when I do things like that, it makes her cringe.
Yeah,
So I have to work through that as well.
yeah. I
I
mean,
know she.
there's
Yeah,
certain things that like my family have cringed about me doing.
yeah.
I mean, there's a vlog I did a while back. It's one of my like first vlogs on my channel. I had been vlogging and I was with my mom in the car on the way to get like dinner or something, and she's like, "You recording vlogs is so narcissistic," and
Oh,
was just like, I was like, not really. Um, there's been other moments where like they'll definitely get on me for like having the rehearsing conversations, and everything, but um, it most of that criticism means like nothing to me because I just know like my parents don't understand as much.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is a if you're whether you know of or are a fan of Gary Vee or not,
Yeah,
something that I have tried to apply to
yeah,
me specifically over this back half of 2019 as far as content and things like that is like, taking into consideration what people say at an arm's length, and like if it's something that you could apply to improve yourself, great. If it's something like you shouldn't do it, it's weird, like
yeah,
you totally disregard it. Like my fiance says that it's cringy to her,
yeah,
but if she doesn't mean it, she's not like telling me not to do it. It's just like weird to
yeah.
see me do something that she's never seen me do before. So like,
Like she'll probably give you like a subjective look, but not like say anything really.
well, yeah, and it's mostly because it's new to her.
Yeah,
It's new to me, and it feels weird, obviously. But it's that's not the type of feedback that you take to heart and like change your entire system
yeah,
over or like do something different, because that type of feedback is one type of feedback, and then another
yeah,
feedback would be like somebody getting in my chat and telling me I look like a zombie because I'm like, I at that moment was like kind of staring off into space. But
yeah,
at the same time, that's one of those things like I need to mentally be able to maintain I guess, or maybe I don't, but at the same time, if I'm looking to if I'm looking to have a specific image, I can't really focus. I have to, I guess, do a better job of making sure I'm
yeah.
either not zoning out or like that type of feedback is something you could act
Oh yeah,
on. And if you know personally that it's going to improve, or if somebody thinks if you think that that's going to help somebody either discover your content or stick with your content or whatever the case may be, whether it's cursing or not cursing or like whatever those things are, like understanding that and taking each piece of feedback as it is, and then mentally deciding, do I let this affect me? Do I let this change what I want to do? Or do I totally disregard it? And for me,
yeah,
I love any and all feedback. People could tell me I suck. People could tell me do this
yeah,
better. People could say whatever they want to say. And I mean,
yeah.
I run it through
I
that
mean, you just
process.
won't please everybody, and that's the
Oh yeah,
thing.
that
Like
too.
for me, I understand I'm not gonna please everybody with the way I run my org or do my content, but as long as like the people who really like my content or really like how I am as a person or really like the way I engage
Hmm.
and do certain things are okay, and I'm okay with how I am as a person, like I could care less about what the other 6.9 billion people on this planet think. As long as that bigger percent or that smaller majority of people are like, you're doing really good. Obviously, you're going to learn things as you go on. So not everyone is Bill Gates perfect at the end of the day.
Hey, I mean, even Bill Gates made mistakes. You just might not have heard about
Oh, exactly.
them. Yeah. Um, cool. So that slap the movie clapper here, because that's the end of the question portion of this
Yeah.
episode. Um, um, yeah. I guess that really yeah. I don't have any more questions on that side of things. Um, so yeah, we got into your history. We got into our Twitter questions. We got into Awaken. What are your personal I guess this is probably where we can start to wrap it up a little bit. What are your personal like long-term goals for Tristin? Not necessarily Awaken Not necessarily like you want to get a certain amount of followers, but what is like,
Yeah.
what do you want to leave behind in the esports space? If there is something that you want to do, it's a big question, I think.
This is something I'm always rapidly changing.
Okay.
Because I'm very tied to my work ethic. I grew
Mm-hmm.
up in a business family. Grandmother on the West Coast is an IRS agent. Grandfather here in the Midwest was a stockbroker and everything. So I've always been in that type of place. I mean, for myself, ever since I dropped out of college a year ago, literally a year ago to the date, I think it's just been really finding myself as a person and like making myself as creatively innovative as I can be.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you're a doctor, lawyer, or if you want to be a doctor, lawyer, nurse, teacher, whatever, obviously you have to go to college. If you're running a business like I am and making content, not necessarily, and that's the thing I've told a lot of people is like, you'll spend $100,000 and barely make that back, and you'll be paying student loans for probably the rest of your life,
Mm-hmm.
or spend $100,000 doing what you love and building it up and making something great. For me, I think I just want to leave a legacy of like, first off, that like you can work hard, face adversity, whether through mental issues, the struggles, of everything around you, and really grinding hard and building something successful. I really want to as well, get rid of that stereotype of people with disabilities in gaming can't do nearly as much as other successful people, because if many of you know me, I do have autism and stuff, and so that's always been a challenge. People outside of the circles that know me, don't really understand what that struggle is like. Um, and so that's definitely one of those things, is to break that that whole thing, which there's still some people that are like that in this community to the day. But otherwise, like, really, I just want to build a legacy and something that I can be proud of. Like, something where I've literally said, I'll probably be 80, 90 years old, and I would be okay with sitting down and playing a Call of Duty game and dying in a gaming chair. Like, to me, that's like the the best like symbolic way to go out, is being like, I'm doing what I'm like, what I love, the way I've loved to do it for my entire life. Like, this is something I want to do forever. So it's something that I think is really special, for me at least. I mean, in terms of goals, um, that's to be decided for me personally. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I think one of my biggest goals that kind of almost got solidified was I pitched to the producers of Shark Tank and almost, made it there.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm okay with saying it is because like they haven't called me, and I am pretty sure I never will get a call back. So it's not like I'm doing any harm or foul, against anything.
Right.
I think there's a lot that I'm looking forward to in 2020. Ironically, like, I dropped out of college, and in the first like 2 months, I'm actually presenting to a entrepreneurship department of the college that I went to.
Oh, that's a good way to stick
So
it to him.
be like, I didn't need you guys. Here I am. Like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get into doing more like video production, more editing, more like some web shows. Definitely concerts are something I love to do. I'm always a big rock music guy, as of very recently. If anyone knows me, big Starset fan. They
Oh yeah.
just put out a new album a while back, and no, I don't know if you want me to go into the band, in terms of things, because I'm one of the Die Hard Day One, like could tell you the whole narrative, everything, type thing. But like they're creatively amazing. At the end of the day on that end. No, there's some other bands that I've been getting into. I mean, I don't know if you want me to just like briefly touch on Starset, or for those that might be interested.
Um, yeah, I mean, probably like a minute or two, and then we could probably wrap up
Yeah.
after that. Yeah, that's fine.
So in storyline, Starset was kind of created by a technology society called the Starset Society. Both both the Twitters for that you can find and everything. But essentially, the original narrative is that, and there's like a novel called The Prox Transmissions, which goes over the detail of the band and the backstory leading up to the first album and second album. Um, about how there's a message that comes from the future talking about technology and what the future looks like if technology isn't utilized correctly. Their new album called Divisions is very much like that, where for those who are science nerds, if you know what neural interfaces and brain machine interfaces are kind of like, the new album is set in the 2040s, where a technology company is using those on the masses. And it's a crazy thing. Like they did a pop-up thing in LA before the release of like the first song. They're very cinematic, very cool. Like they had some of the concerts, and I have a vlog coming out of that. They have posters that had AR codes tied to them that you could look at like videos and everything. And like one of the cool things prior to the launch of the album was they put out vinyls for a previous record, and people got an email from the band saying, "Hey, if you have a QR reader, put it on this part of the thing," and it would send you to a website they had where it was a video of like dial tones on a phone.
Mm-hmm.
And if people went to that phone number, it actually played a teaser of a song from the new album.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so they're really awesome. They're part of the record label that I'm a street member for. Just want to point that out there, but even still, been a fan of them. There's other bands that I'm getting into. Ice Kills, I Prevail is one of them that I'm slowly getting back into. But I appreciate when bands are like so cinematically creative, and even able to do something completely different. Like again, especially with this new album, at the end of like every song is actually audio, like a snip, like a audio clip. If you were from that perspective of someone living through that time, and you can hear all the technology and kind of cool cinematic noises that they have. So it's definitely something really cool, for people to want to check it out. Music isn't hard rock or metal or anything. It's more cinematic music.
Yeah. Cool. Definitely check them out if you're interested.
Yeah.
I guess last question, from a social standpoint, a friend of mine, Louis. I think is your full name, is your first name Lewis? I'm just going to go, I know it's Louis.
Yeah.
We're going to go with that. But at any rate, he asked, I know this is off topic. Lewis, it is Lewis. Okay. I know this is off topic, but are they, meaning you guys, Awaken, hiring designers at the moment?
We always are. I mean, there's a specific style that I look for.
Louis got that style.
But I've always said that even if you don't have that certain style, if you're willing to try and adapt and learn things, like I'll send like a like an example or a reference image from like another team out there or something like years back, and be like, if you could do something like this, like that's cool, and whatever, so I try to help people as much as I can. I mean, obviously, my Twitter is going to be on the podcast, so you can obviously find me. If I don't automatically DM you, it will go to like my message requests and everything, and you can talk from there. the biggest thing is I will say is, it's definitely going to be, anyone who's looking to be a designer for us in 2020, you're definitely going to have your work cut out for you. I mean, anyone who works with us in 2020 is going to have their work cut out for them. I will guarantee that right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, makes sense. Now, obviously, you mentioned it a little bit that your Twitter is going to be in the link, but for podcasts are picked up on a whole bunch of different platforms, YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess the reason for me saying this is if there's not an exact link in the platform that they're using, if you could just run through quickly best way to contact you, your Twitter handle, and if it's also that for Awaken, you could skip that. But if there's something separate for Awaken, I guess plug that the shameless plug section of the podcast. Just go ahead and run through it all.
So I mean, for myself personally, if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, my Twitter is @TaZe. It's the same on Instagram for the most part. If you want to professionally email me, bio, portfolio, all that fun stuff. My email is Tristin@awakenmilitia.com. I try to check that as much as I can. Otherwise, I think my personal email is in my bio, which is tazebusiness@hotmail.com. For Awaken, if you ever want to check out what we're doing, at all times, I think the only platform where we don't have the Awaken Militia name currently is Instagram. I'm literally having someone who's a white hat try to get into that old account because obviously I had it, but I just don't remember the email, password, whatever for what that account was. But I think once that's done or whatever, and obviously in good faith, not just hacking it for the sake of hacking it. Everything should then be Awaken Militia. So that's for Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and everything. And if you want to reach out to us through email, that's info@awakenmilitia.com. If we don't respond sometime in 2020, understand we are going to be putting out a huge, massive new website. And so, we're going to have to be redeveloping things constantly because, hate to say it, I'm going to miss Esportsify, but it's well overdue,
Yeah.
I think we're one of the last holdouts for Esportsify.
Yeah, I hear you there. Cool. Well, if like Tristin mentioned, if you're interested in his journey or the progress of Awaken, be sure to check them out. As always, or maybe I didn't say, maybe not. As always is probably not the right word here, but thank you for coming on today. This was a good episode, so I'm excited to get this one out. But having said all of that, if you've listened this far and you're not subscribed to the podcast, be sure to do that. If you haven't left a review on iTunes, please do that. If you haven't told a friend about it, please do that. But other than that,
if you're not plugging this podcast, then you're definitely missing out, and all your friends are missing out.
This guy gets it. This guy gets it. But yeah, other than that, I will catch you all in the next episode. Thanks for listening, and I will see